The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular, not so popular horror franchises. And today we are talking about Pumpkinhead 3, Ashes to Ashes from 2006. Now, a brief peek behind the curtain, right before we hit record, I yawned real big, and I haven't been sleeping well recently, and I was either just like, well, I either expended all my energy at the gym or, watched Pumpkinhead 3, and I might fall asleep well again tonight. So, yeah, straight to Sci-Fi Channel, cable television.
Yes. Can bypass video straight to jail, straight to the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah. This is a rough one, folks, but, we're committed. So here we are.
I'll say this. It is no Wishmaster 3 and 4. It is no Beyond the Gates of Hell or The Prophecy Fulfilled.
That's true.
In some ways, this is more Pumpkinhead 2 than Pumpkinhead 2 was.
I would agree with that. Sure.
It does try to remain true to the story in the area or whatever versus what 2 did, but in the same way it still just kind of makes it just a straight slasher movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, at the top I think it's fair to say, I mean, this poor guy had no budget to work with whatsoever.
Clearly,
and a lot of the trouble can be laid at the feet of that. You can still make a great low budget movie, don't get me wrong, but it's just, whether it be the Pumpkinhead effects, which I'm sure we'll get into, just some of the set and lack of atmosphere and, the lack of interesting lighting, like you were pointing out the last time when Pumpkinhead shows up. But they didn't have a whole lot to work with, but they managed to get Lance Henriksen and Doug Bradley.
Yes.
So maybe that's where the whole budget went.
That could be. Yeah. They saved on Roger Clinton, but spent it on Doug Bradley. Yeah. I also kind of wonder sometimes with some of this stuff, like the way these things kind of play out, like with the Sci-Fi Channel, whatever, like you never know if it's like, no, you have to have some CG in there because we work with the CG people and it's cheaper and we can get it a good rate versus like if people are strong armed into that, or if it's their vision that like, no, I want to have a PS2 graphic be my villain.
Totally.
But yeah, there's clearly not a lot of budget, and they do try to give us an atmosphere and a specific look. But instead of like, what if we had like creepy lights through the branches or fog? We just had brown. What if we just put brown everywhere?
Oh yeah, brown for backwoods feeling for sure. This is directed by Jake West, and I was taking a look at what he had done before, and he's consistently working.
Yeah,
he's doing
prolific.
He's doing a ton of behind the scenes type directing interviews and special features on DVDs and stuff like that. Like he even did a video for Beyond Extra.
Yes,
like that kind of stuff is like, this guy clearly loves horror. Like, he does interviews for, like, it says something about, like, a documentary about Fulci. So he's in this stuff for sure. And he finally got to do, a feature, I'm sure. I don't know if this was his first feature necessarily, but I do think it's a little bit funny. And I'm not saying I would necessarily do this or not, but his IMDb page shows every single interview that he's actually conducted on all these behind the scenes DVDs. Just like, all right, buddy. Reaching just a little bit, but
if you would be like, hey, I'm your guy for that behind the scenes interviews, check out my IMDb page. You definitely get a sense. I don't know. Like you said, there is definitely a love for this kind of stuff. Judell is not someone that just is collecting a paycheck. And honestly, parts of it reminded me also, I think it's just the look and the feel of it, reminded me of Silent Night, 2012 Silent Night.
Oh, sure.
Like without the misanthropic edges. Well, without any edges, frankly. But but it did kind of have the same kind of vibe. I think just some of it was the look that it had. Yeah.
And I think they shot this much like Wishmaster 3 and 4. I think they did shoot these back to back while they had everybody in like Budapest or Bulgaria or something like that.
Yeah.
Romania. Yeah. So there were hills to climb on this one for sure. And I always like to appreciate that before we make fun of it too badly for what didn't quite work out.
Like I said, I don't want to be too mean to this movie because it doesn't, again, like I said, it feels like 2 more than 2 did in the sense that it continues on the world of Ed Harley and all that instead of just being like, oh, there's a small town and this thing's there.
Yeah.
While Pumpkinhead itself maybe is not as, clearly is not as strong as it was before, it's still not bad. Like Haggis, they brought Haggis back and her makeup isn't bad necessarily, but they just... don't know. They can't capture the same magic that the director of Gnome Named Norm did.
For sure. And that is the thing. Like, you don't get necessarily points for effort in a movie, but I can see what they were going for in a lot of ways. And sometimes it worked for me, even though they didn't like really hit it hard. Like, we'll get to it, but the body on the spiky weather vane on the top of the crematorium was great. Like those kind of moments really worked.
Yeah. Well, like what they did with it was great too. Yeah. Like that was a fun bit. But less so the body of the child.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's some very like, if you, what was that Clint Eastwood movie? The Sniper, the Chris Kyle movie.
Oh,
like
yes.
they took a lot of shit for having like a fake baby in that.
Yeah. Literally a baby doll on set.
Yeah. And this, apparently they had the same set dresser.
Yeah.
this movie.
Right. We open on a guy running through a forest, and, already the film quality is lower. It's more of like a mini DV, maybe not mini, but it's more of like a digital video style in the mid 2000s. And he's being chased by Pumpkinhead. So we see Pumpkinhead immediately in this. They don't save him up at all.
Nope.
And Pumpkinhead corners him against a tree, walks up and slashes, an X in his forehead, kind of like the old myth of somebody being marked. And then this man wakes up in bed, afraid. So we start off on a nightmare, which is always a good situation in a horror film.
Yeah. And this man that's in bed is Bunt. They brought back Bunt from the first one, but it's no longer that same actor.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was so dumb when I was watching this because I was like, Bunt, that's an unusual name. Where have I heard that before?
I feel like I just saw something recently with that.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that is not Brian Bremer. That is in this case, it is a man named Douglas Roberts, who's playing a grown-up Bunt, who now... This retcons the Wallace clans situation a bit, because that was the Buck Flowers gaggle of children and whatnot. They seemed like they were more like agricultural or something. And this one, they own a crematorium, a funeral home that has gone into disrepair. So it's either that one of these children opened it and just immediately screwed up, or that's why he was so busy in the first one and could not wait for the feed. But we find this draws heavily on the, I don't know what I think this was like 2002, or this was like early 2000s, but there was that actual scandal where a crematorium like was not burning bodies. They were just like dumping them in the swamp. The Tri-State Crematorium scandal, it was in 2002. And this is basically the same thing, is that they're not burning the bodies they get. They're dumping them in the swamp, but not before the doctor in town, played by Hellraiser's own Doug Bradley, Pinhead himself, steals their organs and skin, I guess, to sell on some black market.
What a fine specimen. Now, how could anybody want to just throw that away when it could be a new nose or hide some hideous defect?
So what is the advantage to dumping bodies in swamps instead of burning them up like you're supposed to?
What I'm guessing here, so eventually as the movie progresses, I guess that the furnace was broken.
Yeah, I love that they just hand waved that.
Yeah, but I think some of it is also, that's money. That's money going out. Gas bills, all that.
So it's just saving on utility bills is what they did in 2002.
Yeah, what it's called is smart business.
Okay. So you want more money coming in than going out.
And guess what you're doing? Yeah, guess what you're doing? You are literally just burning up that money.
Yeah, exactly.
So smart money, and any crematoriums listening out there, don't burn them up. Just throw them away in the backyard. No one will ever notice.
It's okay.
Yeah. They don't even like bury him. I guess you see at one point Bunt like shoving a guy in a puddle.
Yeah.
That Norman Bates style, it'll just disappear forever. But like, those puddles aren't that deep.
They just seem to be like skimmed off the top of the swamp. So a hiker sees him doing this and sees him in the distance, and he makes it into the mortuary, looks around, and this is where we get Doug Bradley for the first time. And I swear he's dressed just like Reggie Bannister in Phantasm.
He has that little tie. I'm sure there's a name for it, but I just always think of Colonel Sanders.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he's wearing the black vest. It's almost like, it's a mortuary uniform, not an ice cream driver uniform, but these two mortuary bros together, wearing the same stuff. He's working on a body with a group of people just kind of watching. The guy from the beginning, Bunt, after he's trying to bury the body, Ed Hurley shows up for the first time and basically warns him.
You're living on borrowed time, Bunt. Death is forever. What you're doing is going to cause you pain. Sorrowful pain.
This is an example of clear, like, well, we got Lance Henriksen. Let's figure out how to use him, because the whole Bunt seeing Ed Harley just never makes any sense. There's no reason for it to ever happen. Yeah, so this guy wanders into the mortuary looking for someone so he can use their phone. And as you do, if you can't find anyone in there and you can't find a phone, you should probably go into the creepy dark basement. That's probably where everyone is.
That's where the phone's at.
That's obviously where the phone is at. And so he wanders down there and walks in the room where there's people in there and a dead body in a mortuary. And they're all like, oh shit, we've been found out. This is an easily explainable thing. This is just like, hello, you're in a mortuary.
Yeah,
we are working on,
Yeah.
But they are immediately like, seize him and start chasing him.
Doug Bradley actually says, after him, boys.
Yes.
He just sounds like a Scooby-Doo villain at that point.
Yeah.
You know,
Doug Bradley's accent kind of comes and goes. And like there's times where it sounds like he's doing nothing but eating cornbread. And there's other times where he kind of reminds me of Scatman John, like the I don't know if you're familiar with the techno dance guy from like the late 90s Scatman. Just like he'll do some, his whole gimmick was that he stutters, but he doesn't stutter when he scats. And this is a real life thing for this guy. And so he would make these techno songs, but he had this very, I don't know, but in any of his songs, a lot of it is him just talking. And his accent for Doug Bradley just made me think of Scatman's World.
Can't prove the Wallaces did anything otherwise. Heck, Sheriff, I'm not even sure what was done to these bodies is a crime.
The source of my intention really isn't crime prevention. My intention is prevention of the lie. Yeah, welcome to the Scatman's world.
Oh, and not Hellraiser, not Pinhead,
and not Hellraiser. Yeah,
made you think of Scatman.
I did think of Scat, which again a yin yang thing. Scatman is the good, is the yin to. A lot of doppelgangers, a lot of pairing in this, a lot of twinning.
Yeah, there you go.
This is very intelligent and smart.
Very smart. The hiker hides in a barn that is covered in bodies, and I actually did kind of like this sequence.
Yes.
I was kind of impressed with all the dead body stuff that they had laying around. Again, it was more of a shocking, like, so they just throw these bodies around here in this barn?
Yeah.
You know, if
they
the
just
swamp's
don't care.
backed up, it made me laugh. I kind of enjoyed it. And of course, the hiker attempts to disguise himself and just lay there until his adorable companion dog comes up, running up to him and kind of sells him out and starts barking at him excitedly because one of the other boys is going around with a pitchfork stabbing the dead bodies. At first, it's like just for the hell of it, I thought. But then I guess he might have had the intention of trying to grab the hiker, and he finally does actually like stab the hiker with a pitchfork.
But terrible dog.
Yes.
Cat wouldn't do that. Cat would not give a shit.
Bad dog. We cut back. The hiker is woken up on Doug Bradley's operating table. His name is Doc Frazier. And so he starts cutting out his kidney while giving a brief monologue about pain.
Pain is an interesting thing, gentlemen. It doesn't happen here. It happens in the brain. And then the brain sends the message to the body.
I'm like, you're just no Clive Barker with that writing about pain here, buddy. You know?
Yeah, he's trying.
Frazier takes the kidney to some guy in a hotel named Lenny. So you know that's a up and up business. Some guy in a hotel named Lenny.
This is a really good. If you take nothing else from this movie, just know your black market organ dealer. Because this guy does not seem reputable.
No.
And he gets, I mean, it seems like they have a long enough relationship. This has been going on long enough that apparently it's fine. But like he has a new kidney to sell him. And it is, the guy's being kind of shady about it. Won't give him the money for how nice this kidney is. Won't front him some.
How about a little deposit on that kidney?
Sorry, old friend. I ain't got that kind of money laying around.
I write you an IOU.
You think I can keep providing free medical care for this town on IOUs?
Hey, Flores Nightingale. You want to waste your money on charity? That's your business. Not mine.
But also, and I think this is a concern too, is that your black market organ dealer is also your meth dealer.
Right.
Now on paper, that sounds great. Again, cutting costs, financial moves, consolidate. But I think these are two different skill sets.
That's probably right.
He either needs to be making the meth or running deals with that. He doesn't have time to do, it's like if he's doing both those things, how good is he at either of them?
Yeah, I mean, the kidney is more of a sales thing, whereas the meth is more of a production type of thing.
Because the meth sells itself.
That's true. A kidney takes a little work. You got to convince someone.
You got to find the right guy. Yeah, you can't just go jam a kidney into some stranger.
In their mail slot.
Yeah.
Just delivery. The others dispose of the body while they're making the kidney deal. But then the hiker wakes up in the swamp and stumbles into the road. Yep. So you can survive an illicit kidney surgery if you're ever worried about that. So a young blonde woman picks him up by the name of Molly Sue. Now she's going to be our heroine for the movie. She rushes him to the police station. Bunt is arrested, said the furnace hasn't worked in a long time, and that's why he was burying bodies. So he got busted potentially by some cops out there. They go to the crematorium and grab a hold of Bunt.
Yeah, because Molly Sue gets the surviving hiker in his final moments, which I loved. I just love how this works out. How he runs out in front of the car and she kind of hits him, not like sends him flying, but taps him. And then he just is like, okay, hey, the Wallaces did this to me, whatever. She's not like, who are you? Let's get you help. She's like, give me all the information and then I will help you out.
Right.
But he spills the beans about sort of what was going on and she drives to the sheriff's office. Sheriff and the law in this town do not like her because apparently when she lost a child, it doesn't say to how or why, but this child died and she lost her mind for a while and was, I don't know, difficult to deal with or just whatever, but they're all
rather acceptable in those circumstances, if I may say.
But they're all like, what is this? You'd have another dead kid, idiot. You seeing stuff again? And she's like, no, this is a real thing. I have the body in my car. And so they're like, oh, we're fine. And then
there you go.
These are almost as good as the Crystal Lake cops as far as like, oh, you're going to make me do work.
Yeah.
So they like, all right, fine. We'll go to the mortuary. And they find out they're not burning bodies.
Right. And again, I love that excuse. Oh, the furnace hasn't worked in years.
What am I supposed to do? Fix it? Come on.
Yeah, come on. Town starts pulling bodies from the forest and the swamp in the area. They all come together in this community to help find. In the jail cell, the siblings actually bring up... Now, so before I say siblings again, they're siblings, correct? They're all from that area. Yeah.
That is my understanding is that Bunt and Dahlia are the woman. I don't think the other guy is.
Because some of these people got a little bit hard to tell apart sometimes, and then I couldn't tell which were coming from the Hollers and which kind of belonged to Doc Frazier or were in his family at first, which I was a little creeped out with the way he treated that one meth woman.
Yes, yeah. He is unrelated to any of them by blood anyway. But a good rule of thumb in telling some of the characters apart is, were they clearly overdubbed later? That is just one guy, but it's like, oh, it's that guy. Okay.
But I'm still running around crazier than a June bug in May because my baby died.
Sheriff, we just need to organize these folks, and I got all the equipment we need.
You can tell that they hired a couple of Romanian actors for these roles as well, just from the name. I mean, that's all fine and great, but it is funny when the overdub has to be a thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, any of those like Italian films or so many of those where they're just like, no, we just shoot it and then we all do the sound later because we're working with people from all over and they don't speak English naturally, or we'll just have them say it in their language or something. But this is clearly because it sticks out compared to everyone else.
Exactly,
it's more off-putting and a little stranger and funny in ways it's not supposed to be.
So the siblings, while they're in the jail cell, they do bring up Pumpkinhead, and they even recite a little bit of the poem, which I thought was fun.
Yeah.
One of the guys from the community goes digging in the pumpkin patch and finds a skeleton with a totem around its neck from the end of Pumpkinhead 1.
And they basically go to the same spot.
Yes.
To that same weird raised area in the pumpkin patch. I thought that was cool. I thought they brought it back. I thought that was great. I also very much enjoyed when she was getting fed up with them complaining, doing the Pumpkinhead thing. She was like, oh, enough of that superstitious nonsense. To the kid that has seen and been terrorized by the thing, that she's like, nah, none of that actually happened. And also, a lot apparently has happened to Bunt in between then and now. Because Bunt in the first one He's a little kind of like a little smart alecky, like a little wiser beyond his year, maybe, you know.
That's
like,
true.
But this one, he's dumb as hell. Like he's been like in the interim years, he's done nothing but hit himself in the head with a shovel.
Yeah, right. His characterization is definitely more of the kind of like slower kid in the backwoods instead of like Bunt in the first one being like, hey, I know how to make a buck out here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a little bit streetwise.
Yeah, he's on the path to Lenny is like,
yeah, exactly.
Is his thing.
Molly ends up finding the body of her child amongst the dead that the community pull up. Yeah,
this whole scene is amazing because first of all, you have the great attempting the famous Gone with the Wind shot, like with all the bodies and the devastation of the aftermath.
Yes, exactly.
But it's panning down to Doug Bradley and this row of people, and I just thought like that was fun. It was like a little wink. Yeah, it was a good time. But when they bring out. Like, so the family members coming together, including these two people that, their mom was in the barn and they're disgusted. Then someone shows up with her baby and like comes out of the crematorium with her baby and it's clearly a doll, like arms sticking out. Like you could have just like had a small, like swaddling, like blankets or something and been like, you as the audience would go like, oh my God, I know what that is and just watch the horror play out. But because you just brought out a My Buddy doll, it's real hard to watch. Or the Cinco Boy, whatever they call that. Yeah, it was very, very silly. But I mean, good for her. Good for Tess Panzer as Molly Sue Annan for selling it. She's trying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She did what she could. Yeah. I'd love to see her on the day when the props master brings that up to her and just be like, okay, so this is your dead child. You can sit with it if you want to kind of work on this a little bit. She's like, ooh, all right.
What if I didn't? Right? What if I just... Yeah.
You got a blanket? Just then, Haggis, or as they call her in this movie, the old woman of the woods approaches and someone says, the stories are true. And she takes the body of the one buried from the pumpkin patch back. I kind of enjoyed this, though, because it shows the power of her mystery a little bit over the town folk, that she can just walk right out, put something on a cart and take it back, and they're all kind of scared of her.
The time has passed. Industrialization of sorts has happened. Like people, the members of the community have gotten further away from the old ways. And you can see that later. Well, you can see that in this scene because there's a minister there. And we knew in one, that wasn't happening. There's clearly a church that just didn't take, but there's a church here now. But people have gone past, they've quote unquote civilized and moved past those old ways. And so, the old woman has been cast in a legend, but there's still enough there that, when she shows up, they're like, oh crap, this isn't just some goofball coming out of the woods. Like there's something, there's a power here.
There's still some power.
And I will chastise us a bit for not calling out in the last one that was Lillian Chauvin from Silent Night, Deadly Night as Miss Ozzy.
Okay,
yeah, but that one's gone. That was also around. This is straight up. We're back to Haggis.
And
but I'd like to use her as an example where you can hire older actresses to play old people. You can hire older actors to play old people because this is clearly a young person doing an old person voice.
People say you got powers. That you can do things.
I can't bring back the dead.
Boy, it's not working. It's
not working at all.
It's Adrian Brody doing the tough guy voice in Predator. Yeah, it's not happening. Makeup's pretty decent though.
Yeah, not quite as good as the first one, but not too bad. And she's in full daylight in this scene too, so the makeup has to carry more weight.
And I think that's kind of an issue as well, because I think part of what sold Haggis in the first one is that air of mystery. Like we talked about how it would just sit on a close-up of her makeup for a very long time, but it was still shrouded in mystery and shadows and stuff like that. But this is just, hey, look at this in the cold light of day. And it still looks fine, but it's just, I don't know, Haggis up and out operating seems a little bit less interesting.
Yeah.
But I do like that she comes out to claim the body. That she's like, no, this one's mine. You stay away from this.
You've got something in mind.
But at the same time, if you're, never mind. I guess if you find a body, if you're digging up a body that was supposed to be cremated, you're just assuming that everyone should have been cremated in this area. So she was like, no, I buried that guy on purpose. Let me have it.
Right. So Molly tries to rally some other town folk to go see Haggis, and they all make it out to her shack in the woods. And I did laugh a little bit because there's a couple of, like, the editing of this was just like, ooh, a spooky tarantula. Ooh, there's a skull. There's a spider. It was almost like they went to the Halloween store and did like a quick montage of like spooky things in a house.
Yeah, and then there's like
didn't
little
quite have the atmosphere
for it. Yeah, it's not really the same.
Yeah,
it's the same thing as when in one where they're like, hey, I heard you can do vengeance. And she's like, I can't raise the dead. I heard you have powers. I can't raise the dead. But this time, instead of just being one person, instead of just being Ed Harley, this is three different people.
Which is important. And she makes each one of them all admit that they actually do want vengeance.
Yeah.
And so everybody decides that they want vengeance for, I guess, Molly's dead kid.
Yeah. So, like what is the vengeance for? Really? Because
it must be her dead kid.
Well, I think it's for, I think it's for her dead kid, and like, but in the other case, I think it's like for the mistreatment, like they didn't burn my mom like they said they were going to. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is who's behind this, because would you just be going after the Wallaces? Would you be going after Doc Frazier? Was Doc Frazier like behind all this, or did he just like hop on later and be like, hey, well, if we're not burning things anyway, how about
a few bucks?
Give me a kidney. Or is it the system, man? Is it capitalism?
Right.
I guess it's Doc Frazier though, according to this movie.
Yeah. I think so. And then of course, all three of them have to have some beef with Doc Frazier for this to work.
Yeah, because I think it's all just boils down to like they didn't. I paid money to have my relative burnt, and they didn't do it.
So that makes me so mad. I'm going to summon a demon and kill the man. I'm going to
damn myself to hell.
Okay.
Yeah.
The corpse becomes Ed Harley, who then quickly becomes Pumpkinhead in a pretty funny like animation sequence.
Yeah. I mean, because it's kind of ridiculous in that, in the first one, when you see Pumpkinhead, is the Pumpkinhead's already kind of changed. And at the end of it, Lance Henriksen has already started changing. He still looks like Lance Henriksen enough, but his eyes are going weird and whatever. And it's unclear when she puts him in the ground if it's Lance Henriksen. But this is just like, he just sort of kept looking like that. Like he aged like Lance Henriksen.
Aged to perfection in my mind.
That's right. That is true. And
I love that man.
While initially it's Lance Henriksen and like some CG, his flesh kind of reforming and stuff like that. And then he immediately gets monster mode. And it's cheap, but I liked the ingenuity here that to sort of like have the Pumpkinhead sort of emerge, grow, whatever. It's just close-ups of parts of the Pumpkinhead costume, like moving, and they add a crack underneath it.
That worked.
It's like, that worked. Yeah, that totally sold the idea that like it's like, I'm transforming and becoming this
He's
thing.
waking up and stretching.
So it was like a quick little efficient way to do that.
That's how I get out of bed every morning.
Pretty much.
just these bones just start cracking. And
I wake up as Lance Henriksen and then immediately become a monster.
Yeah. Before I've had my coffee. Am I right?
Monday, particularly on Mondays. Dilbert. But it's like, okay, well, I could see, you sort of get the sense like, low budget, but I liked how you sold that.
It worked, yeah. But I do love that Pumpkinhead goes straight to the police station and starts killing people.
Just Terminator immediately.
Completely. And so let's examine the lore here. Pumpkinhead in the previous films was bound by vengeance to those who committed a wrong. The cops they may have done wrong in this small town, but it is not related to the Pumpkinhead, or it is not related to the crime that he's avenging.
Gripe, yeah.
So now he is just like, people are in my way now, I'm going to kill him. It's another way to up the body count, but I'm just saying that it's not commensurate with the previous lore.
Yeah, I mean, at least in the original one with Ed Harley's like first kid, like all he really knows is them outsiders. So that's what he,
true.
he doesn't go like with Joel specifically.
Just the one.
Yeah, he's like, no, they's all bad. And this one, I don't know if maybe when this spell is cast, when this thing is raised and summoned, it's never like put a specific name to like, write down, check this box for summoning and then write down who you want him to get. Yeah. It's just sort of implied like it will know. It will steal enough of your life. It'll know. And so maybe they were, you're dealing with three different people here. So maybe the thing is that, it's like, yes, we want the people behind the crematorium gone, but also just, hey, no, these cops didn't do anything about it. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm just making stuff up for it.
Yeah. So then, he slashes a cop's throat with a claw, and then grabs one of the kids in the jail cell and just kind of squeezes his head so hard that it pops gore all over the back wall.
Yeah,
that was kind of fun.
It was fun, but I was kind of like, what do you suppose happened there? Because he's just kind of like crushing his head, and then it's clearly a bucket that they just throw up. But again, it was fun.
Against the wall.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, it was very, very silly. But I was like, okay, this movie's not holding back on for being a Sci-Fi Channel movie. Sure. I was kind of surprised how gory some of it was.
The other kids escaped the jail jail cell, make it out to the police car, and they go meet up with Fraser. Oliver and Molly Sue now go to see Doc Fraser. Everybody needs to run and go see this guy. He examines her a bit, and meanwhile, Pumpkinhead arrives at the mortuary and just starts attacking one of the kids. Noticing here, too, that there's no flashing lights, there's no
he just
signifier of his arrival. It's just like a guy walking into a room. And sometimes...
Yeah, there's nothing magical about this Pumpkinhead.
No, like, alternate weirdness that you were referring to from the first time. And man, we'll get to it later, but when he walks into a room sometimes as a CGI Pumpkinhead, the strut that he has is just like out of a music video or something. It just made me laugh every single time.
He is working it.
Pumpkinhead arrives and shoves one of the guys like through the window, in kind of a reverse Jason, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so now Doc Fraser sees him for the first time, and now we have like kind of what I was referring to earlier. There's a good bit where he takes one of the kids up to the roof on the house and impales him on a spike or a weather vane or something like that. And something about the building and the angle of the camera, it does look kind of like cool Gothic style, like old movie.
For that, when they managed to do it enough, like this is like I think one of the first times you see the Pumpkinhead in shadow, and or I'm sorry, the Pumpkinhead in CG, but they keep it so shadowed that you can see the action that's happening, but that saves it from looking too ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. And so now we are starting to see everybody else who did the vengeance raising. They start reacting to Pumpkinhead and his actions.
Yeah, they put a little digital effect around him where like stuff's swirling and strange, and it sure beats the hell out of the Pumpkinhead vision from 2.
Totally.
It's a little forced, maybe, like it feels very just effecty, but it was, you knew what was going on to the extent that we know what's going on with any of this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was thinking about that with like, so in the first one we were confused about, or confused is the right word, we were wondering about what the trade-off was, what was happening there, and why Pumpkinhead was changing into Lance Henriksen, what was happening to Lance Henriksen. When you have 3 people, how does that work? You know what I mean? Is he 3 times as powerful? Does he, do all 3 of them? Because he's got like, more fuel in the tank, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
And it really doesn't make sense why those other 2 got involved. Like, it really doesn't do much, because I think it's supposed to create some tension because of the clearly ADR guy, the clearly voiceover guy, loves the girl that's not Molly Sue. I can't.
Delia.
No, it's not Dahlia, because Dahlia is the meth lady. I think that's Ellie. I think that's Ellie Johnson.
Ellie Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah, because Ellie and Ronnie Johnson are the other ones that Oliver Allen is the dub guy, and like just that little conflict doesn't really pay off into much. The whole they try to add this layer of drama that just doesn't really pan out, because not a lot of time is spent with him. Most of the time is spent with Doc Fraser, with Doug Bradley, like in his machinations. Which it's Doug Bradley. You want to makes sense, whatever.
Yeah, you want to see him. Yeah,
his whole thing is very strange because apparently he's doing all of this. He is selling these kidneys and not burning these bodies because he gives the entire town free health care. Okay.
Is this one of those like conservative arguments against single payer?
Yeah, this will happen.
This will happen. Someone will have to harvest kidneys from other people and sell them on the black market if y'all want free health care.
Because we won't pay them enough to have to buy a yacht, so they're going to start just not burning bodies to get the yachts they deserve. I don't know. It's very strange because it is. I think it wants to give him some kind of element of, well, he's not so bad. But he's nothing but bad in this movie. Like adding that little it was for a good cause just seems like him justifying it to himself. He just likes doing this stuff, and selling money and buying meth for people. Maybe that's the healthcare. Maybe he's just like, no, just buy meth for. Try some of this.
Take 2 bumps. Call me in the morning, or 3 days from now.
Everyone in town's constantly on edge.
Yeah, like normal now.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, everybody's always on edge now.
Yeah.
Ed Harley appears to bunt again inside of a car and just being all ominous, telling him that they're all marked and that kind of thing.
No, it's not my fault, Ed Harley. It's not my fault.
Why don't you tell that to God when you see him?
I just laid down with the dogs and got fleas.
And Bunt ends up crashing the car because he thinks he sees Ed now just out in front of the car and swerves to avert him. Dolly gets knocked unconscious, and so he has to carry her back to the crematorium. Everybody's just kind of coming and going from the crematorium in this entire movie. In fact, later on, I feel like there's one moment where Fraser like leaves and then goes directly back for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Yeah, there's a lot of runaround, and I get the whole, as I mentioned already, the whole Ed Harley being seen by Bunt just doesn't make any sense because it's supposed to lead to Bunt's eventual change of heart that like maybe not burning dead bodies is wrong. Ed Harley's always just like, hey, be good because I wasn't and it sucks. Whereas like I think there's a huge missed opportunity there to have him just be like a Cenobite victim or something like that, where it's just like I'm in what is it, Event Horizon or something, where it's just like I'm in constant pain. When you're seeing me, I'm just this screaming ball of flesh and wounds, and just like giving you these lectures rather than just looking like Lance Henriksen being like, hey, I may look like Lance Henriksen and things are great, but things are not great. All right, see ya.
No, I get that, but I mean, as cool as it would be to see Lance Henriksen in a whole bunch of like weird, messed up makeup and such, I just want to see that guy just delivering some cool lines too.
I just really want to see him go like owie 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 owie. I'm just read a line and then that same voice be like owie 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 owie.
Owie.
I heard a lot. Ouchie ouchie.
I blame Pumpkinhead in my decisions.
Yes, don't seek vengeance. Vengeance causes ouchies.
Bunt tells Fraser the brief story of the first movie, essentially. Yep. He admits that he's the kid who told Ed where the crone lives. Again, not that there's that many people named Bunt in the area, but I am the Bunt who did that.
Oh, that Bunt.
of the area Bunts. Shows a bunch of flashbacks of the kills from the first film. Those do not count for the in memoriam.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah, we don't count flashbacks.
A memorial service for all the found bodies is held in a one-room small church house. I'm always a big fan of this kind of a set piece, like the one-room, like old-timey church. It just has an atmosphere to it that I always enjoy. Yeah. The priest starts speaking, and he finally gets to chew some scenery, because when he starts screaming a bunch, I'm like, that's why that guy took that role there. He got to flex that day a little bit.
In Genesis, we know that God saw that the wickedness of man was great, but that there was room for repentance and acceptance. Forgiveness, friends. Sin is not born here in our minds. No, it starts here in our hearts.
That minister just, he's going to town. Good for that guy, though.
It was his big day.
Yeah, I like the idea that in character, that it's not that the actor is just this insane, like just this really scenery chewing terrible thing, but that the minister is like, thank you, God. Like, I know you work in mysterious ways, but now it's my time to shine.
Cue the lights. It's performance time. It's why I got into this biz. So it does cut to a shot of Pumpkinhead outside the church that I absolutely loved, of him just dragging a giant log behind him. And I was just thinking, like, what's this little scamp going to do with that log?
He's using tools. Oh, no.
He's evolved and he's cute.
Your standards are cute, are really upsetting.
Yeah. I find a lot of strange things cute.
Yeah.
What he does is probably my favorite shot in the movie, which is he climbs in to a stained glass window of the right behind the preacher, which shatters the stained glass, very CGI looking window, all flies down into the priest's face. And it's not so much that image that I love, but what Pumpkinhead does is he comes through the circular window. He just sort of like plops down and sits there.
Yeah.
And just kind of like he's saying, just like, oh, how y'all doing?
Hey,
like church time, huh?
Yeah.
Save me a seat in the pews. So like there's something about the CGI body language of him. He just looks like a little scamp. Yeah, he's just a little guy.
It's real silly. Yeah, we've seen him climb up the church tower with total, and they do this a few times. His tail is fully doing the Queen Alien whoosh, 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 with the sound effects. Of course. And it just is. Oh man, it is, like I said, it's a PS2 cutscene. It's real weak when he jumps in. And like he has a jump later that I very much enjoyed. So I guess I like my CG Pumpkinheads in midair. Is the best time. Yeah.
Sure. Not the taking off or the landing, because then they have to move too much.
Right, yeah.
You
But
know,
in midair,
you see the... Right.
It's pretty great.
He immediately knocks the priest backwards, who falls into a bunch of candles and then catches fire. And then, of course, the whole church catches on fire.
Well, I learned this recently. Apparently, if you're on fire, the body has a natural reaction to go to the most flammable thing and flop against it.
Okay.
Sort of a defense
like
mechanism.
Curtains and
so
robes
curtains, he immediately just goes to the curtains that are apparently covered in oil. And they just go up immediately.
Yeah.
I always love that, how it's always like, oh, well, I better go to like the most flammable thing possible. Not that you're, oh, I seem to be on fire. What's the best way to deal with this?
Where's the water?
Yeah, but it always is just poof. Although, to be fair, Miss Osi just went, oh no, and just burned alive. So she burned like a pro. Good for you, Miss Osi.
Show him how it's done. A deputy fires it at Pumpkinhead, and he responds by just picking him up and strangling him. Burning wood falls on one of the kids that is connected to him, one of the vengeance seekers. Ronnie, and makes him collapse on the floor. And of course, Fraser notices all of this. And then just when we're thinking they're all safe, this shot was interesting because it like pulls out of the church. The music starts playing in such a way where they're just like, we have now vanquished Pumpkinhead. And I did hit pause and just be like, this ain't over yet.
That can't be it.
There's still like 30 minutes left or something. But yeah, then Pumpkinhead stands up to his full height and is seen walking out of the flames, very much alive. It
is unfortunate that while I take your point that who should suffer under this quest for vengeance, that him blocking the church doors like really didn't do much ultimately. That they were just like, oh no, we can't get out. Oh, now we can get out. Like if there's some more destruction happened off of that, I would have liked that a bit more.
Bunt tries to get his brother's body down from the spike on the roof, and we've got a little bit of a comedy scene here, I think. And he ends up slipping, yet still he grabs onto the other body by the ankles and manages to pull the body down off the spike and slide off the roof and splat right near Fraser, who barely pays it any mind.
Yeah.
Like a little comedy reaction shot.
Fraser is talking to a cop and like, while this is happening, and the cop turns to leave right as the body hits the ground. There's no reaction. It's him like, there it is. And then just walks up.
This is why I got minions.
Yeah, like that is someone else's problem.
As with the first one, all the vengeance seekers decide they want to call off the curse. They go to the crone about it, and of course, she says they just can't.
You thought you could just call his name and that would be all? There are those who are marked and those who are damned for asking.
You thought it'd be easy.
Yeah, Fraser goes to see Richie, who is out cold, before he can inject him with something. So it's unclear what's in the syringe, but it's never good.
Yeah.
Pumpkinhead attacks them by whipping his tail around through the wall, which is, a gift of bad CGI. You're able to make these attacks happen. And just as Pumpkinhead tears through the wall, which is actually pretty funny. This is one of his strutting scenes here. Fraser kills Richie with the syringe, which makes Pumpkinhead collapse.
Yeah, but I do. And that's even like played as a joke, as he keeps trying to give him the syringe before stuff keeps happening that prevent him from giving him the syringe.
I do like this shot of Pumpkinhead just like tearing his way through like the paper thin walls of a hotel, which he does a couple of times, I think.
The one hotel that everyone is staying at.
Right. Fraser goes to kill Molly Sue now, and he hides in the closet, very Michael Myers style. He even grabs a wire coat hanger, which calls back to that film as well. Oliver arrives to convince her that Fraser is trying to kill everyone that raised the demon. This is cross-cut with Bunt and Sister gonna skip town as well, but Fraser catches up to them as well. So this is a whole bunch of like intercut scenes where Fraser just manages to like almost be on their tail and they get away.
He's everywhere he needs to be.
A little repetitive.
Yeah.
Exhausting.
There's a lot of back like, oh, did we do the right thing? Oh, I don't know. There's a lot of faffing about back and forth here where it's not interesting through most of this movie.
Yeah, I was starting to struggle around here.
Yeah.
I liked the church scene just because I liked that location, and I thought some of it was kind of funny and the priest was interesting, but by here I was officially just kind of like, woof, like I'm gonna have a hard time with the rest of this one.
Well, because it's lacking the actual like emotional stuff that the first one had, whereas It's one guy. It's Lance Henriksen and his loss, and we watched him and his idyllic life with his son, and then him dealing with that, and then him dealing with the repercussions of it. But this is again like a Wikipedia article version of it, where you're just sort of, it's like as read, like, okay, so these people are getting attacked now, and they feel bad because they're getting attacked. Not that like this is wrecking on his soul and he's been struggling with this the whole time. It's more just like, oh, yeah, you didn't say that I was going to have a hurt tummy in this, so can we stop doing this? Like, there's just no weight behind anything. It's just it's all plot. There's no icing on anything. Yeah, so they're just like, yeah, no, this sucks. We didn't mean for the entire church to get attacked by a monster. And Haggis is like, that's what happens. You wanted this, like, without acknowledging, like, yeah, it's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to kill one guy, like, not all of them.
Totally.
But yeah, I don't know. And like, I understand that, like, yeah, it's going after everyone and that can cause a problem, but it just it didn't have the same weight as like that internal struggle. It just was like, this has gone in a way that we didn't 100% love. Rather than being like, vengeance is horrible and rots your soul, is more just like, it does that. Yeah, that's a bummer.
It's also just the simple fact that none of these actors can hold a candle to Lance Henriksen, struggling with his decision too. Molly Sue goes to see Lenny at the hotel. Then the other sister shows up with Fraser looking for some meth. Bunt helps Oliver try to get the crematorium operating again. This is kind of like, this just did not carry the emotional weight that I think they thought it was going to, because it just basically looked like two buddies going into business together.
Yeah, because it's Bunt supposedly having this change of heart about like, oh, well, I keep seeing Ed Harley, and Ed Harley tells me, hey, this is bad. Here's a whole bunch of flashbacks from Pumpkinhead that I shouldn't have because I didn't experience them. It's very much, I think just seeing that recent Saw movie really put me in mind of Saw and how they handled that. And so when they, that was full of flashback, someone else's flashback. So when Bunt was doing it, why not? But yeah, then he's like, oh, I guess not burning bodies is wrong. I should burn some bodies. And so he and the guy who's voiced over it the whole time, they start repairing it, which, like, what does that take? Like 15 minutes? Like, that's what it took? It's just you needed another guy and you went through all this? Like, okay. Meanwhile, back at the hotel. So like, Lenny is the guy that's been selling them the meth, and is Doug Bradley's organ dealer. It's clear throughout, Doug Bradley and Dahlia are like lovers basically, and it seems like he kind of also controls her with meth. And I just like this moment where she kind of puts it together in her head, like, why don't I just eliminate the middleman and have sex with a meth guy for meth? I mean, like, they don't have sex, but there's a big sexual energy between them, and I guess when you get high on meth, you just giggle a lot and have a good time. Yeah. That's meth for you, everybody.
I guess so. Yeah. Wouldn't know.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's totally what Thankfully. It does. Absolutely. It's a good time. I mean, Breaking Bad really sold it short. It's just negative propaganda put out there. No, but it was very funny because they're just like acting like reefer madness happened. Doc does not care. Doc's like, whatever. I'm too concerned for my life. I don't care that you're kind of hooking up with this other man.
Totally.
I'm listening, because at this point also, and this is something I never understood. So Molly is there as well.
Yeah, I think they're all in the hotel in different rooms.
So so she left her house out of fear that Pumpkinhead was going to come get her, and then I put that together. All right.
So here again, we have another little speech by Fraser just saying, he does this all to provide cheap health care for the area.
What about that hacker? You killed him.
Oh, I had no choice. It was him or the health of this town. How else do you suppose people around here afford the kind of health care I give them? It has to be paid for somehow.
Where he's kind of falling back on that chestnut again. She starts turning a little bit into Pumpkinhead now, her eyes and skin.
That is true. Yeah, they all start. Yeah, she and the Ellie start kind of getting a little bit more like paler and varicose veins. Not as drastic as...
You can't go through the full Lance.
Yeah.
But
you know what?
He's got 2 steps ahead of you to begin with.
To Doc Fraser's credit, we don't see how he lives. So he could very well be spending the money on healthcare. We don't, we never see his house, his palatial estate or anything.
Fair enough.
So he could still be just like, I live at this hotel. And I'm trying to look for something nice to say about Doug Bradley.
Don't we all? Yeah. Pumpkinhead shows up at the hotel, because everybody has to be convening on this location
it's the
here.
Place.
It's the place to party, and squishes Lenny immediately, which makes Molly Sue flinch and lose her gun for some reason. And I guess because she's connected to Pumpkinhead. Others who are connected to Pumpkinhead start changing as well after a kind of a great shot of Pumpkinhead tossing Lenny through the hotel walls. That was the other one where he tears down walls and just struts through. Fraser shoots Molly, but then he's just backhanded out of the window by Pumpkinhead, which that's just his normal attack, I guess.
Yeah. Which we skipped over it, but speaking of slapping, at the very beginning, towards the beginning, when they uncover all the dead bodies that have not been burned, and the sheriff shows up, Molly Sue slaps the sheriff, and it is the most like cartoony slap sound. Like it's just like what is the 2 slabs of meat on ping pong paddles?
Exactly.
It's just this very like it's ridiculous. But so he gets backhanded out the window.
The meth lab explodes, sending Fraser toppling even further. He gets like double shot right there, I think. He makes it back in to shoot at the other woman. Bunt takes the bullet, and Pumpkinhead smacks Fraser yet again. So he is just getting knocked all over this hotel room. And then finally, another kill that would not have happened without the era of CGI that we were in. Pumpkinhead's tail goes straight through Doug Bradley's chest.
That's right.
Kind of xenomorph style. I guess back at the crematorium, this is also cross-cut with Ellie, who decides, I guess she's the last person standing here. She crawls into the furnace on her own volition. Yeah. She burns up, turning Pumpkinhead back into Lance Henriksen, who then turns into ash and floats away.
So their solution, Bunt and very voiced over Oliver, are fixing the crematorium, and they're like, well, we can get rid of Pumpkinhead if we burn all the bodies. If we take care of the thing that the vengeance is about, maybe this will happen. And the big final thing they do before she heroically crawls in there is they just toss that baby in there.
Yes.
Just he might as well have like reared back and gotten a perfect spiral on that thing. Like it is so silly looking, and it's not
totally.
I don't think it's played off as like, yeah, we know this is silly and kind of more. It's like, no, this is serious. What's happening? We believe that this is an important moment.
It's the music. Yeah, it's their expressions. They're really so going for it.
Yeah, just like they just toss this very stiff doll in there, and it doesn't stop Pumpkinhead. It's not until she also kills herself, ending the cycle of vengeance. But like he sort of turns into ash. I guess that's what it's supposed to be because
it's sprinkly.
It's sprinkly, but it's also just, you can tell it's just, we found some loop, some digital loop of like ash falling. We're just going to play it over the same scenes. And then like, because when Haggis walks in, it's not like sticking to her at all. And it's happening like behind. It's very fakey looking. And then she comes in and to get the burned body.
A couple real goofy FBI agents show up at the end. Just one of those kind of like, hey, bring your own costumes and bring some sunglasses and you can be in my movie.
Yeah, like he just told 2 random people, hey, do you want to be Neo? And they were like, I've got the costume for it.
Totally.
Just tell me what time.
So that's when Haggis grabs the body and buries it back in the same place. But this time, the body of Ellie, also with her dumb magic book, because throughout the film, I guess we never mentioned, but allegedly Ellie is also into magic stuff, but it's not quite the Haggis old style magic.
I completely forgot about that. Like I forgot to mention it. No, I just completely forgot about that. Like this movie just passed right through my eyes like nothing. But
Yep.
Yeah, the FBI guys show up and to nothing. They're like, we got called in for help. And they're like, thanks. See ya.
Nothing here. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I guess that implies that Ellie's going to be the next Pumpkinhead.
I guess we'll see in the next one.
Because with a totem of hers.
Yeah, no one else is left. Because my guess is if they're doing, and this is a guess because who knows, but like if they shot these back to back and you have like some of the same people, like why not just keep this going? Right. You decided to bring this back, do what 2 did and be like, no, it's a different small town. It's fine.
Sure.
It's like every other one is this separate Pumpkinhead, which I mean gives rise to the question of who was the Pumpkinhead in 2, I mean, obviously it's Tommy, but like, why was that happening? It seems like Pumpkinhead is specifically a thing called forth by Haggis. So is this because it happened like years later? like at least like a decade later, is this technically a legacy sequel that shows up later and then it just ignores 2 and then you know,
I would say so.
Yeah, it seems like it because it's just like, don't worry, 2 never happened. We're coming back and it's a reboot of sorts. But I mean, it's not really a reboot because it owes so heavily the first one. It directly, but it's just
they flash back to it and stuff.
It's the Halloween of the Halloween 2018 of Pumpkinhead movies.
Right. Well, let's honor our dead here. Sheriff Bullock, played by Dan Astilaniu, throat slit with claw. Dahlia Wallace, played by Lisa McAllister, stabbed in chest with claw. Tiny, played by Deku Arl, impaled by roof spike. Reverend McGee, played by Philip Bowen, thrown then burned alive with candles. Lenny, played by Emil Hostina, claw and throat. Junior, played by Julian Yilta, head crushed. Molly Sue Allen, played by Tess Panzer, shot by Doc Frazier. Ellie Johnson, played by Iona Gingina, slashed with claws. Doc Frazier, played by Doug Bradley, impaled with tail. Ronnie Johnson, played by Caitlin Paresheviz, crawls into crematorium. 10 dead bodies in this one. So we went up for sure. Kind of, as you were saying, kind of surprising for a sci-fi channel.
Yes.
It's, again, like I said at the top, there's some interesting stuff in this movie, and I feel like, there's a ton of stuff constrained by the budget.
Yeah.
I could tell where they were going, but yeah, man, especially by the third act, I was just kind of hurting a bit and waiting for this to kind of wrap itself up.
Yeah, it's very dull. I mean, like, good for them for trying to resurrect the actual story plot line of the first one and try to keep some of it the same, or some of that same feeling and atmosphere, but it doesn't. You could see the lack of money that they had on this thing.
It was kind of interesting. I was thinking about how the community has changed, or the hollers have changed, because the first one had such a distinct atmosphere. And then this one is obviously 20 years later, 25 years later or something like that. And you could make the argument that, places like that have been hit by serious drug use and, depressed industry and stuff like that. And so I kind of would like them to lean into that a little heavier. Yeah. I mean, they did to a point, but I would go further with it. I'd like to see Pumpkinhead Goes Justified.
Sure.
And I'm saying that as someone who really likes Justified, that show. But
you just want Raylan Givens to come in and shoot him. That's fine.
I do.
I would see that.
It was Justified.
I mean, it makes me, not to bring up Silent Night again, but I'll bring up Silent Night again, that there was a whole thing in that the factory's closing or the mill is closing, that there was some connection to the world around it, that maybe was why people were so upset or whatever. And leaning into that, meth use, instead of just being she's just a bad kid and is a bad scene is adding meth use, that giving it a sense of place, I think would have helped a lot. Cause it does just seem like it's kind of a backwards, and it requires you to remember what the first one was like to give this any sort of location and feeling. Otherwise, it's just a country place.
Right.
I think that would have been an interesting thing to watch because it's very flat. But it's like 2 in that way too, where it's just
sure,
we just kind of have this wrap around. It's a slasher movie that we're just going to try to throw a little bit of magic at, I guess. But this one,
and we got a cool creature design, and so we're going to resurrect that.
Yeah, you couldn't. It's a kind of a bummer they couldn't afford a strobe light, because I would have at least liked that. I mean, it adds so much. Although, we did figure out with the last one that you need to have the strobe light and the sound. But there
you go.
I think missing some of that was not great, and just made the monster seem so much less mysterious, and just a guy in a suit comes up and backhands you. Yeah, I need a magic backhand.
All right, well, that's it for Pumpkinhead 3, Ashes to Ashes. Not a lot going on in this one. Would I recommend you watch it? Well, yeah, because we're all completionists here, and you got to. So keep on keeping on. But
like I said, I will put it like a decent level above Wishmaster 3 for sure. 4, I have a weird fondness for 4. Mainly it's just the guy that turns into a pimple, but even though you don't see it, which is, it's still not good. And those weird Canadian doors, but yeah, definitely better than Wishmaster 3. So it's like, my expectations have changed for 4. Like they've actually raised a little bit compared to what I had
just
before.
A tiny bit,
but it's not huge. But I'm like, okay, well, let's see what happens here. I still don't think it's going to be very good, but
right.
So because it's Lance, I think Lance Henriksen is in that one too.
He is, yeah. I mean, if you're going to fly him over to Romania, just keep him there for another 10 days or something, and just have him shoot his like ghostly advice column. Basically, is what he does.
How not to
Dear
be damned to hell. Why is every week, every article, every letter he gets is just, well, don't summon a demon about it. That's not that helpful, or it's helpful to a point, I guess. It's helpful. Okay, I know what not to do, but how does that solve my problem?
He might have other ideas to offer, like ask him about cutlery or something like that. You know, he might know something. He ran a general store.
That's true.
Small business owner.
Don't forget the feed. I think that's a big one.
Don't forget the feed. There you go. That would be number 1 on his.
Stay away from city folk.
Well, thanks everyone for watching along. I know some of you are watching along with this series again this time, which is always fantastic. Indeed. And thanks everyone for listening to our emergency Saw pod. I will say that did seem to get a nice reaction, but I'm just not going to see Exorcist Believer for a emergency pod because we have not done Exorcist
yet. We're not required by podcast law to go check that out yet. Yeah, because I am not looking forward to it. It does not look good. We saw a trailer for it before Saw, and that's the first one I'd seen, and no thanks. And
no, thank you.
And thanks to people who've reached out to us about their Saw X experience. Thank you, Sicko Gina, for letting us know how you felt about it, and for speaking out against the travesty that was Shawnee Smith's wig. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Justice for Shawnee Smith.
Justice for Shawnee Smith. Well, they'll release like a George Lucas, like a special edition where that's all they did. Right. They just gave her better hair.
That's it.
We just didn't have the budget at the time. The technology wasn't there. What's
going on over at John and Alex Hate Stuff?
Over on John and Alex Hate Stuff, we're going to check out John Carpenter's The Thing, horror classic, one of my favorite movies. So we'll be watching that and chat about that in a couple weeks.
Sounds great. And again, sometime in the next week or so, we're going to try to do a general what we've been watching lately type show. So stay tuned for that. We're just trying to record a little bit more often here in the October month for everyone. So until then, thanks for watching along, and check out Pumpkinhead 4. And we'll be back in a week to discuss that one with you. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and on Twitter at hurtabit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.